I'd like to thank all of you for coming. I don't think that this event and this gathering is just by chance, or that we are here with the sisters. I think there is more beyond this. And I believe that tonight is an historical night for all of us. And what a better place to be than a place that echoes St. Francis. So tonight my presentation hopefully will be a conversation. I'm originally from Somalia. I came here in 1993 as a young man, 10 years old, around there. And for the last 20-some years I've been here. And as Minnesotan, as many of you, hunting during the hunting season, fishing, even though I don't catch good fish these days. And speak Minnesotan even. And I've noticed that when I travel, people always often find, and I remember actually one incident. I went to Amarillo, Texas, and I was buying something, and somebody heard me, and he said, "You must be from one of those Yankee states." But I was sharp and witty. I was sharp and witty, and I said, "I thought we won that war." But I really want to thank all of you for coming. I recognize that this is an important event, and I recognize there's a lot of discussion here tonight, and a lot of opportunity to talk back and forth. Thanks, Jim. So my presentation is a little bit different. I'm not going to go through, Sally did a good job of talking about a little bit of history and specifically with intolerance. But I want to talk to you about Islam and Muslims. I'm a Muslim, and I want to tell you what is a Muslim. You know, and to explain that, to kind of really talk about what do Muslims are thinking. What are they doing every day, other than the few things that I mentioned to you. Also to talk about this concept of fear and misunderstanding, and why we are here, why we have gaps in our understanding of each other. And finally, to just wrap all of those things together. You know, the Quran is quoted a lot. Quran is talked about a lot, which is the holy book for Muslims. And tonight I want to start by sharing with you the one chapter that Muslims read every single day. The one chapter that they reflect upon 17 times a day at a minimum. This chapter is very important to Muslims. And it has profound words in it that shape the identity of the Muslim. So I'll start with first reading it in Arabic, and then I will translate it. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. Amen. And it starts off, it says, in the name of God, the merciful and the beneficent. Praise to God, the Lord of all the worlds, the compassionate, the merciful, the master of the day of judgment. You alone do we worship, and you alone do we seek help. Guide us to the straight path, the path of those whom you have bestowed your favors, not those that have incurred your wrath, nor those who have gone astray. These are very powerful words for Muslims to reflect upon each day, to ask God for guidance, to ask God to benefit from God's mercy and compassion, but specifically to ask God for guidance, and to not be of those that God is angry at, or who have drawn upon his wrath. So this is the 7 verses that are read every day, 17 times at a minimum. This is a Muslim. You probably have all heard of the 5 pillars, and I won't bore you with, the social studies aspect of it. But these 5 pillars kind of give the identity of the Muslim. And the first of them is the declaration of faith, what declares a Muslim to be a Muslim. And that says that there is no God but God, and Muhammad is the last messenger. There's no God but Allah, and and Prophet Muhammad is the last messenger. The second pillar, which is a foundational pillar, which some of us Muslims here tonight with you are doing, praying 5 times a day. And giving charity. The third pillar, giving charity. And some of you right now are thinking to myself, oh, that's okay, God, prayer, yep, we do that too, yep. Charity, yes, probably on the collection way here, or on Sunday. Fasting, and Lent was not, which everybody's aware of. And then the last one, to make a pilgrimage to Mecca, to perform the Hajj, if you can and you're able to. These are foundational aspects of Islam. Beyond that, we talk about the faith. What do Muslims believe? What is the core beliefs? What defines these 5 pillars? And there are 6 articles of faith. The first, believe in the one God, which unites Christians, Jews, and Muslims. Belief in the angels. As most of you will know, Archangel Gabriel, the same in Islam. Believe in the revealed scriptures, the Torah, the Bible, and of course the Quran. Believe in the messengers who were sent by God, starting with Adam, Noah, and all of the other great prophets and messengers. Believe in life after death. And this is something important for most of you, because I know I'm a little bit young guy, so I still feel like I have another maybe 60 more years, God willing. But believe in life after death, and believe in Judgment Day. And also believe in Qadr, or decreed. These beliefs are what really carries a Muslim every day, and are important to a Muslim. But I know that most of you here tonight understand that, or have heard of it, or know a little bit of it. But I want to really now focus a little bit about this concept of fear, misunderstanding that has developed. Some of you are wondering, oh, these people from the cities. Well, actually, I lived in St. Cloud for a few years, and have to say proud graduate of St. Cloud State University, a product of this community, and which I'm very fortunate to have a job now today with the Minnesota Department of Agriculture. So if you're interested afterwards, if you want to know something about trees, or I'm not a scientist, but I can try to maybe answer one or a question. But really, I remember in 2008, as the president of the Muslim Student Association at St. Cloud State University, I did something that a lot of people thought would never happen. Even the students who were with me, the student group. We had the first ever Islam Awareness Week. And my advisor, may God bless him, he did not come to our meetings. He avoided us. He was busy. But as soon as we announced that we were going to do it, we had our flyers, we started to hear a lot of people calling and saying, who is these people? What are they doing? And then my advisor showed up actually at my door. And it was like, Jaylani, what are you doing? What's going on? It's like, yeah, well, I sent you the email. We're doing Islam Awareness Week. So eventually we had this wonderful event at St. Cloud State Campus where many people showed. We had a conversation. We had a dialogue. And it's not 2008 that I did that. I didn't do the Islamic Awareness Week because I felt like it was something to do. I understood something about America that all of us may know it, but I believe in it. And that is, this is the country that we can have a conversation. We can have discussions. We can debate. We're the ones teaching the world how to debate. Kenya last year had the first televised debate of presidential candidates. We can have those discussions. We can have those dialogues. And that is something that I really am proud of. And I'm glad all of you here are here today and we can have those dialogues. But in reality, there's a major factor that I believe really fuels misunderstanding. As a young person growing up, all of you remember that if you hear of one story from Wisconsin, and that's the only story you know, you're probably going to believe it. If you know that the Green Bay Packers are the best team in the world, and that's the only thing you were told, you will never believe the Vikings are okay, I guess. But the reality is, by the way, I'm a hardcore Vikings fan, so it's hard for me to say that, but I'll say this, and what I'm leading to is, as Sally pointed out, September 11 is the only story many Americans know of Islam and Muslims. And I feel so sad because on that day I remember, I went and I was leaving, had breakfast, on the way out, having a beautiful conversation with my mother. And that day, I never left the door. Glued to the TV like all of you. Shocked. And when I heard someone said they did in my religion, I was more offended. And I wanted to speak to people. And I wanted to talk to people, to tell them that is not Islam. And the reality is, something could have helped us, actually, before September 11th. And that's one of the points I want to talk to you about. Islam is not a new religion. And unfortunately, most of you went through school, you probably did not even cover Islam. Because there has been a lot of history that has been omitted from this conversation, the stories. If you pull out your cell phone and you want to press any of those numbers, any of the numbers, number 1, 2, 3, 4, you want to dial the number anyone. Anybody who's going to make a call, Muslims developed the numbers. The numbers that you're using today, Muslims developed. The concept of zero, Muslims developed it. Some of the early medicine, some of the early engineering, some of the greatest things that we benefit from today, Muslims developed it. If you had that story in the back on that day, September 11th, you would have had something to compare, something to analyze. And the reality is, this is why we're here today, to share with you our beautiful religion. That most of you would say, there is a chapter in the Quran that talks about Mary, a complete chapter in the Quran that talks about Mary. This is Islam. And I feel if we look back in history, we recognize, and I know Sally kind of just pointed out a few things, but there's many things. Algebra, astronomy, many things that Islam and the Muslims in their times produced and benefited the world as other people and other faiths have produced throughout time. And there's something special about this area. We I know you didn't talk too much, but Minnesota, Iowa, North Dakota, this is some of the first homes for Muslims in America. In Ross, North Dakota, in the mid-dead center now where the oil boom is, was one of the first mosques. And I was very surprised because I learned that when I lived a few years in North Dakota in Fargo, and I learned. And it was a community there of farmers that lived as early as in the early 1900s. The first official mosque is in Iowa. And there's history that there was Muslims also living in southern Minnesota and different parts of this area. So the Midwest has been home to Muslims, whether we know it or not. And I know I'm going to just say something, but most of you are probably, it's been a long, I guess it's probably better to say, it's been a long winter. Actually, where's Larry? Larry coined the term for me today I'm going to use with his permission, which is, how did you winter? I didn't know about that one, so I'm gonna try to use that one, Larry. On the younger guys, most people, old people probably know. Like, how did you winter? It's a really good one, a conversation starter. But all of us are probably this summer going to go to the State Fair or wherever we go, or Dairy Queen, and we're going to grab an ice cream and a cone. And if you know anything about an ice cream and a cone, you'll actually find out that it is a Muslim invention. And it didn't happen in Spain, Islam. It happened in the St. Louis Fair in the early 1900s by a Syrian immigrant. I said refugee because of the war, but immigrant. So we have to recognize that Muslims have been here, and we continue to learn from one another. But since September 11th was a shock, but after that shock is really what has been more troublesome. With still many people only know very few stories about Islam and Muslims, there came a whole wave of people who were selling fear, who wanted to get to people before they knew something. See, if any of you come to me today and you say, actually, Wisconsin is not bordering Minnesota, first thing I'm going to say is, what? Which mental hospital? I know that. You can't tell me Wisconsin is not to our east. I know that information. But if I did not know which direction Wisconsin was, or Wisconsin was even a state, more than likely I would believe you. And there are people today across the United States walking and driving and getting paid to go in front of people and say, we know Muslims. This is who they are. And they are telling our story for us. Just like those individuals on September 11th tried to tell the picture of Islam, a wrong picture of Islam. And that is very dangerous. And Sally pointed one thing about the consequences of this. There are tremendous consequences. And not only to our neighbor in Wisconsin, which I'm mentioning, where the Sikh temple, they didn't think that they were Sikh. That gentleman didn't go there because they were Sikh. He went there because he was Muslim. And perhaps more than likely, just like young Muslim impressionable people who go online, who take wrong information, acted upon that information, he also acted on wrong information. And then even as late as earlier this month in April, a man was killed outside in Home Depot in Sacramento. And the man who killed him, he was actually shadowing and actually following him around, premeditated. And when they asked him, he said, of course, he hated Muslims. I understand there is a lot of room to go. I understand that this conversation tonight is not the end of conversations. And actually, the best conversations is not in front of the microphone. It's real conversations. When we have food and we talk about the Vikings, and thank God the Wild actually still are relevant tonight, and all of these, and then we bring, after maybe we had our food and we drink a little bit of coffee, then we sit together and say, tell me about this prophet of Muhammad that you believe in. Let's have a dialogue back and forth and exchange ideas.